everyone today in the country has a voice.
I would rather have 10,000 super fans who really care for what I produce.
It's really about knowing your consumer.
Just saying that, yeah.
I'm
Exactly,
human.
exactly.
I make mistakes exactly like you do.
Hi everyone, I'm Bhagyashri, the founder of Disposal Company. Today we are at the studio launch of Amicable Crew. We are here with distinguished personalities today talking about the future of videos. So Shivani, I'll start with you. As a brand strategy head, what do you see as the future of videos? How do you incorporate videos in your brand strategy?
Well, more than videos, I think let's talk about content, right? Of which videos are a large part of. In the famous marketeer Seth Godin's words, content marketing is everything. There is no other form of marketing left other than marketing of content. So the future in terms of content and in terms of video is extremely promising, because today anyone who has a voice, that needs to be heard, can be heard. The democratization of content and videos has come to an extent where there are lots of authentic voices that are being heard, which I think is in turn creating a pool of extremely good content creators, who don't shy away from speaking their mind, which is also good for the brand, because rather than back in the old days when you had just one or two people whose voices you could lean on, it gives you a chance to lean on to a very, very large pool of newer, authentic voices to take your message forward. So in a nutshell, it's a win-win on both sides.
That's brilliant. Now, you brought out a very interesting point about, leveraging the voices of, millions of creators. Manish, I believe you are, building a very interesting startup in this space. So why don't you first give us an introduction about your work and, just tell us, like, how do you see the future of this space?
Thank you, Bhagyashri, for having me here. First of all, what I do right now is I'm a co-founder of Panel-1, which is a creator monetization platform. Essentially, what we find is that the creator economy is booming. Almost everyone has something to say, or they're a creator in their own right. And by creator, I just don't mean they write well or they make a video or they speak, but any craft they have. Anyone who has a craft is a creator, right? So the challenge which was there until now was that these creators were dependent on large platforms like YouTube or Instagram or Twitter to not only distribute, but also monetize. Now, these platforms are good for distribution because they have a huge user base and they get discovery, but then there is no direct monetization for these creators on these platforms, because primarily what happens is that these platforms are driven by user engagement and ad-driven model. So their whole idea is to get users to spend more time and serve them ads, and whatever ads they serve, they give a small cut of that to the creators, which is quite minuscule, right? So the direct monetization channel was missing for all creators, and that is what we are trying to do with Fenuri. The other question that came up was about video and the importance of video. Now, there is a big development that is happening, which is that the attention span of people are going down, and the data plan cost has come down drastically. Now, if you look at us as human, we perceive the world visually, and that too in motion, right? I mean, when you sit here, we talk to people, things are not static. We are watching all the movements and we are perceiving the world in motion. Now, video is a digital representation of the same thing, right? So until now, the bandwidth was so expensive that people try to do a toned down version of the video, or they would go to audio. But now that if the bandwidth is not a constraint, you would of course do video. And even in video, you will do short video because attention spans are so short and you have multiple choices. So then you would want to quickly decide where do you want to spend your time. You can't afford to spend 1 hour on something that is only mediocre or slightly above average. You want to spend something on a very high quality. And by giving them quick information, appealing information in a short format, that gives the attention span going. So that's a big growth area for IC, and that is bound to keep growing. And not just video, short video, but also immersive video will come in now with the more advancement coming. I'll just pause here.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Now, Shweta ma'am, Manish just talked about, how we as humans perceive the world around us in motion. How are you as a, forward-looking politician leveraging this?
Okay, so someone told me very interestingly someday that the only difference between an animal and a human is storytelling. And storytelling is the best in a video format. Let me skip to some statistics here. So interestingly, and this is for you to understand, that there is a statistic saying that every Indian spends 2.5 hours every single day on social media, out of which he sees 85% video content. Second, we have 135 crore people in the country, 35 crore out of them are on Facebook. So you need to understand, for people like us, we know that the next election is going to be fought on YouTube, on video content. So that's how important video content is. Having said that, you need to understand that how this content, see, content is king, is a said statement, is an underlying statement. But what captures your attention, what is the narrative, how is the narrative set, etc., falls in the category of storytelling. And that's where I feel good video creation, good video creators, good platforms that can ensure that the right kind of content goes to the right kind of audience is more than welcome. And I think in times to come, we are going to be seeing more people like Manish who are going to filter out more and more creators and point them to the right kind of audience. And that's what people like us, people who build the policies, people who use and make products over these policies, and people who create, like government, who creates a platform for everyone. See, ultimately, everyone today in the country has a voice, and he has the power. And that's what I was just discussing with Manish Ji, that decentralization is the power of India today. And it is this 135 crore powerful people that is going to build the future of India and ensure that it becomes the superpower. And hence, we need to ensure that the power stays with them, remains with them, and they know how best they can utilize that power.
Brilliantly put. Now, Shweta ma'am, you talked about, the power of storytelling. And I'm sure, today brands are more and more just working on building story into and incorporating the stories of their brand and taking it to the last consumer, especially in the D2C space. So Shivani, how are you today using the power of storytelling at 82 Degree East? And for the uninitiated, 82 Degree East is co-founded by Deepika Padukone. So Shivani, on to you.
So I think more than the question of how is it that the brand is, leveraging the power of content, it's about listening to your consumers. You first want to know, A, who is it that you're talking to? B, the one that you're talking to, what is it that they want to listen? What is it that they aspire? What is it that resonates with them? And eventually, what are the kind of stories that they want to be told? And that is what circles back to any brand when they tell a story. So it's really about knowing your consumer, understanding their needs and wants and aspirations, and channeling that back to them, because otherwise you will end up creating content which is alien to them. The best brands in the world, I believe, are the ones that listen to their consumers and give the consumers the stories that they want to hear, and not, operate in a silo. So I think in our case, specifically in the industry that we, kind of operate in, the conversation around transparency, the conversation around education, and when I say education, I mean the education of the products, of the industry, of the best practices. These are some of the pain points, or these were some of the questions that we realized that our consumers were interested in knowing. Without going into a lot of depth, you handpicked a few of the burning concerns and, the burning wants and desires that our consumers have, and you kind of created content for them to then make it palatable for them to not just consume it, but also share it. Because that's another power of great content created. You don't consume, you also share.
Yeah. I think that's a very thoughtful approach. Now you address the side of consumption. I'd also like to talk about the side of video production. Now, Manish, you again work on that front. Give us maybe real life tips of how do you see in future creators would be able to monetize their videos.
Yeah, before coming to credit monetization, I also want to second what Shwetaji said. I think she made a very important point, which is about we as human being, we connect with stories, right? I mean, because at a very basic level, the emotions remain the same no matter how much we evolve, how much we develop. So love, hate, jealousy, desire, aspirations. So all those emotions remain the same. And I think what video does in a much better way is that it is able to connect those dots and tell a story that you can relate to. So you can have the best discovery, the best stuff in the world, but if you can't connect to that human being that you are talking to, it's useless. And I think storytelling is that tool that allows you to do that. So she made a very, very good point there. Now, coming to your point about how to monetize, right? So if you go to the very basic level of how monetization happens, either you make the person who is consuming your content pay, or you make someone else pay who benefits from someone else watching that video, right? So in the first instance, it is user paid model, right? And that is how it used to be in the olden days when you go to watch a movie in a cinema hall. You as a moviegoer, you buy a ticket and you watch a movie, and that's a very simple model where the content creator produces a movie and they put it up for show, and then someone who likes to watch pays for it. Now somehow that model got vitiated in the startup. The Bay Area companies came in, and their model was completely very different. That okay, we will harness the user base, we'll collect tons of data about the user, their watching preference, their profile, and because we'll have such amazing technology, then we can target the right ads to them, and therefore brands would love us, and we will collect money from the brands, and because of that we can offer it free to the users, and more users will watch it, and sort of that whole virtuous cycle will happen. The downside of that is, of course, the user becomes the product, and sort of data and profiling becomes very important. Plus, it also creates a world where there are a critical few winners, right? You cannot have too many Facebooks and too many YouTubes and too many Twitter. There's going to be one in each category, because it's a winner-take-all world kind of world. The one who is the biggest is the winner. Everyone else has no business model. Now, over time, what is also happening is that people are also realizing that there's a whole issue with privacy, and there's a whole issue with this whole data thing, and I think every country is waking up to it, and every country is framing their own privacy laws and data protection laws, and also housing the data in the right place. So that will lead to fragmentation of this platform, and the power will go away from them eventually. And also on the user side, their awareness will increase, and they will not share too much data. I think the whole app tracking thing that Apple came with, most people choose not to track their information on the Apple phone, and that is why the ad business of Facebook and everyone showed a decline in the last fiscal year, right? So the user paid model will start picking up again, which is basically if you have a great content, you're a great creator, then why don't you talk to your super fans and make them pay for it, right? Rather than having 1 million followers on Instagram who don't pay you a single dollar, it's okay to have 10,000 super fans who pay you $10 a month. That's $100,000 a month, right? That's $1.2 million a year. That's a good enough money, right? So the question then becomes, some people will realize the fact that, okay, I don't need to just blindly go after followership and have millions of followers who are completely useless from a monetization perspective. I would rather have 10,000 super fans who really care for what I produce, and I will produce bespoke content for them. I will have exclusive premium interaction with them, and I will charge them directly. And that's how many business models will also evolve. So we are in the latter space. We are not trying to build a sort of a platform where people get more followers, because there's plenty of platforms that will give you followers. We are building a platform which allows you to monetize, identify your super fans, and charge them directly for a content or video or any kind of piece of work that they value and they want to sort of pay for.
That is very brilliant, and I'm very hopeful for the future of videos, with what you're building and how this space is evolving. How do you see this, Shweta Shaliniji?
So Bhagyashree, I think there are two aspects to a video format, right? One is, so there are multiple videos which are multiple contents that you are exposed to, multiple platforms that you're exposed to. Now, the way to look at this is from the creator perspective and from the audience perspective, right? Now, some people have looked at it, and that's exactly what Manishji just said, from the platform perspective as well. But there are two people who are extremely important. One is the brand who's creating the content, and one is the audience which is consuming this content. Now, one of the most important things for a brand is, now a lot of studies happening on how the audience is, whom you are talking to, and so on and so forth. But if you actually look at the storytelling and the narrative and the positioning that the video creates for the brand, if it is untrue, the audience actually rejects it. So the audience who's actually consuming this content is also consuming your product. It is actually giving their heart and soul to you. Especially with Indian audience, it is important. So if you look at it from a political perspective, how much ever you fake, you ideally have to be realistic to get into people's heart. Yeah. And that's the reason why I think a lot of surveys and research like this at the audience level is trying to amend brands, and not only their storytelling approach, but also their product, also the people, also their offerings, their services. So that's the best thing about content. Second is from the audience side, if you actually look at it. Now, the audience has the power. Manish picked on the subject of security, and I was going to talk about it. See, it is important for me to have the power, but I also need the power of choice, right? And this power of choice, we are a democracy. In the country like India, I need to have the freedom of choice to not only pick up my product that I use, to hopefully love a person that I love, to be a fan of somebody that I'm in awe of, but also to see the kind of content that I want to see. You can't push content onto me because I belong to a particular demography. And that's where a lot of platforms are monetizing through their models. And that's the reason why from here on, security is going to be extremely important. I think the world is looking towards blockchain because probably the world needs a safer place now. India is getting younger by the day. Young people are going to need that privacy for them to understand that I don't want my parents to know what I'm seeing, right? So the world will definitely move towards platforms, ideas, where the privacy and the freedom of choice remains with the audience. And he will not be influenced by either the brand or the storytelling or the platform. And I think that is the fairness of technology. And video making, storytelling, and all platforms are eventually going to go there, because beyond everything else, I firmly believe that technology is important, but it definitely comes after people.
Brilliant. And this is extremely exciting, and I think we're going to see a lot of development in this space henceforth. Now, a very important point also is the video production, the quality of content that we are really putting out there. So in this space, and given the occasion that we are at, Shivani, what do you think is going to be the role and expectation from people like Amicable Crew here today?
I think production plays a huge part in the entail of any sort of content. While I agree with what Shweta said about the narrative, the storytelling, who are you going to, what is the kind of content that you're putting out, but eventually all of this will reach the audiences via the production that you choose to have. So in that sense, it's extremely important to have partners who carry on with you in that journey and eventually are able to create a piece of content which, in a manner of whether it's technology, whether it's quality, whether it's delivery timelines, are able to meet those expectations towards the entail of any content cycle. So I think from that perspective, companies such as Amicable are a welcome, entrant into the industry, which till now has had production, but production also with the sensibility of what is it that we're going to do and how is it that we're going to do it, which I think is much needed and much welcome.
Brilliant. So many congratulations again to Amicable Crew, and we hopefully will have a lot of work for you in future. Now, Manish, you're looking at democratizing the whole content production, also through your platform. So again, what do you see as the future of production companies and expectations as well?
I think I see two options. I think one would be they can go a bit downstream and also figure out how they monetize what they produce. And I think they have a lot of choices in terms of what platforms they want to use. So one is that. Second is they can also partner with people who already have a set of followings or have a business model, and they can sort of partner with them and become a production partner. I think those two things I can clearly see as the future production companies. One thing I also want to say is that there is also a marked change in the way production happens, right? It used to be olden times, I remember at Network 18 as well, a lot of focus on package production, right? A lot of planning was done, a lot of scripting was done. People used to spend a lot of time packaging it and a lot of subtitling and all that. What I saw in my times during Twitter is that things are becoming much more raw, unfiltered, authentic, right? People are shooting from their car, people are shooting from their room, and I think COVID time was also a big eye-opener, right? And people sort of like the relatability that, oh, you are like me only, right? I mean, you also have a bedroom and it also has a towel hanging and I also have the same thing. And people sort of saw that as a very good way of endearing themselves, right? So if you want to build that authenticity and relatability, I think being script to be unscripted, right? I mean, like you have to come across unscripted. There might be a script behind it, but then it has to come across very original, very raw, relatable. To build that connect is going to be very important. I think that's a new way. I think more tactical stuff is around, like whole vertical formats have really picked up, because I think most people are now consuming video on a mobile device. All said and done, I think that's how the consumption happens. And on a vertical device, I think you have to have a vertical video. Short format is the in thing. Many people watch video without actually opening up the sound thing, so it is what is muted. So subtitling becomes very important. It has to be short, it has to be punchy. I'm sure all these are tricks of the trade, you would know it already. I don't have to tell you. And I think the point that Shwetaji mentioned about, understanding your audience and relatability and authenticity is so important, like not only in politics, but also in any kind of content production, because in politics, you have to understand your audience and be authentic, because they will call out your bluff, right? I mean, and these days, like whatever you put anywhere, people will tag you and cross-reference you. So you can't be two different personalities, right? What you say is what you say, right? And people, it's okay to make a mistake and own it. People love the fact that, oh, I made a mistake, I screwed up, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Just saying that, yeah.
I'm
exactly,
human.
exactly.
I make mistakes exactly like you do.
Yeah, so being that authentic is what will give you love, right? I mean, people will like the fact, but if you're always packaged, you're always like, I'm above you and I never make a mistake, I think the world is over it now. I think people can see through it, and I think that applies to business as well. Brands which make a mistake and are authentic and they own the mistake and they sort of come back, say, I made a mistake, I'm going to not do this again. People forgive them and they move over it. But if you keep fighting it back, I have seen like worst kind of trolling happen against those brands on Twitter, right? Yeah. So people are very ruthless, and I think you can't fool, at least the Indian public, you can't fool for sure, right? So that's what I would say.
Yeah, Manish, I think that's really eye-opening and as raw as it gets.
Yeah.
So finally, Shwetaji, now, again, with the video production and that becoming a very crucial part of the political journey of the young politicians to come and the existing ones as well, how do you see, the role of production houses coming into play?
I see it very promising. And looking at the people in front of me, I think I see it very young. You need to understand one thing. Video is here to stay because it tells you a story that is very relatable to you, right? If you actually go back and look at, I always look at Yash Chopra, and Yash Chopra ji was Yash Chopra ji, okay? With all the silsilas and films like Chandani and all of that, they actually produced the entire fraternity, Bollywood fraternity, produced a teaser for the first time with Aditya Chopra in Dar. So for the first time, Bollywood actually produced a teaser was in Dar, and that's when the younger lot came in. So now with the change of technology in video production, we have the Gen Z which has come in. So we are going to be seeing a lot of change of formats, and I think the world needs to be ready for that. The world needs to accept that. It's nice because you will get younger by the day. Second, if you actually look at reels, and that's exactly what Manish said, everybody is a video creator and everybody can be a video creator. And lastly, everybody aspires to be a video creator. Also, if you actually look at the trending videos, just about anything can trend. You know, it could be party ho rahi hai with absolutely no, practices followed as far as photography is concerned or videography is concerned. But it's nice, it's different, right? Or it could be anything. So what we are looking at is a world that will love you or a brand being as closely realistic as possible. So all I'm going to say is that you need practices, technology, and structures, systems to enhance who you are. So I think if we are better at who we are and we know whom we are talking to, we are sorted. What remains is the bridge, which I think is in the best hands. All my blessings to Amicable Crew, because they have all the check boxes right. They are young, they are studied, they know all the tricks of the trade, and most importantly, they have thrown themselves out in this big bad world, and they are extremely confident as young performing adults who know where they are doing, where they are going, what they are doing, and what they want to do. So I think this is how the young generation is. We just need to fit in.
Yeah. Well, that's a brilliant conclusion to this insightful conversation. I thank all the three speakers, Shivani Prabhakar, Manish Maheshwari, and Shweta Shalini ji, for being a part of this conversation. And kudos to Amicable Crew for putting this panel together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having
Thank
us.
you.
And it was a pleasure to talk to you as well.
Thank you.